Imagine standing in the middle of the sea and seeing giant metal towers rising out of the water like something from another world. Silent, abandoned, yet still watching. During the darkest days of World War II, when the threat of Nazi air raids loomed over Britain, the country needed more than courage. It needed innovation. Out of that urgency came one of the most unusual defensive structures ever built, the Maunsell Sea Forts. Located in the cold, unpredictable waters of the North Sea, just off the coast of England, these towering structures were designed to defend against enemy aircraft and naval attacks. They were not built on land, nor were they traditional ships. Instead, they stood on the seabed itself, massive steel and concrete platforms rising above the waves. The idea came from British engineer Guy Maunsell, who proposed a radical solution to protect vital shipping lanes and river entrances. His design was unlike anything seen before. Each fort consisted of several interconnected towers, each serving a specific purpose: gun emplacements, radar stations, living quarters, and control rooms. Construction began in the early 1940s, at a time when Britain was under constant threat. The forts were assembled on land and then towed out to sea, where they were carefully lowered onto the seabed. Once in place, they became permanent fixtures, unyielding, immovable, and ready for war. From a distance, they looked almost unreal, tall, skeletal structures standing against the horizon, connected by narrow walkways. Waves crashed below, winds howled through the metal frames, and yet the forts stood firm. Life inside these forts was anything but easy. Soldiers stationed there faced isolation, harsh weather, and the constant tension of war. Supplies had to be delivered by boat, often in dangerous conditions. Communication with the mainland was limited, and at any moment enemy aircraft could appear in the sky. But despite these challenges, the forts played a crucial role. Equipped with anti-aircraft guns and radar systems, they helped detect and intercept incoming German bombers and mines. They protected key entry points to London and other important areas, acting as a first line of defense in the open sea. For the men stationed there, the experience was unforgettable. Imagine waking up surrounded by nothing but water, no land in sight, the sound of waves never stopping, the metal structure creaking in the wind, and the knowledge that you were standing between your country and an incoming threat. It was not just a military post, it was a test of endurance. As the war progressed and technology advanced, the need for such structures began to decline. By the late 1940s and early 1950s, the forts were gradually decommissioned. The soldiers left, the guns fell silent. But the structures remained. Over time, they became relics of a different era, rusting, weathered, yet still standing. Some were dismantled, but many were left in place, slowly being reclaimed by the sea. Then something unexpected happened. In the 1960s, a new kind of activity emerged around the abandoned forts. Pirate radio broadcasters, operating outside government regulations, saw an opportunity. These offshore platforms were beyond the reach of national laws, making them perfect locations for unauthorized radio stations. Stations like Radio Such and Radio City began broadcasting from the forts, playing music that was often restricted on mainstream channels. For a new generation, these structures were no longer symbols of war, but of rebellion and freedom. This unexpected second life added another layer to their history. One of the most famous cases involves a former Maunsell fort known as Ruff's Tower. In 1967, it was occupied by a man named Paddy Roy Bates, who declared it an independent micronation called the Principality of Sealand. While not officially recognized, it remains one of the most unusual claims of sovereignty in modern history. Today, the Maunsell Sea Forts stand as silent witnesses to decades of change. Some are partially collapsed, others remain surprisingly intact. Their rusted frames contrast against the gray sea and sky, creating a haunting, almost cinematic vision. They look like something from a science fiction film, but they are very real. For modern audiences, especially in the United States, these forts represent more than just military history. They are a reminder of how necessity drives innovation, how structures built for war can take on new meanings, and how even the most isolated places can become part of unexpected stories. They also challenge our perception of space and purpose. What was once a battlefield became a broadcasting station. What was once a defensive structure became a symbol of independence. And what was once filled with soldiers is now empty, yet still full of history. Standing there today, surrounded by open water and endless sky, the forts feel almost timeless. They no longer serve their original purpose. They no longer echo with the sounds of war. But they remain. Silent.
unmoving, unforgotten. Because sometimes the most powerful stories are not the ones still being written, but the ones still standing.